And welcome to today's Skill Up. My name is Emily Sprenger, and I'm very happy to be joined here with Dr. Meg Roberts, our proofreading coordinator at National University. And today she's going to dive into becoming a scholarly editor. I'm going to cover a few brief housekeeping items as people are moving into our Zoom room. Friendly reminder, we are recording today's session. If you would like to, please utilize the chat, and we would like to have any questions in the Q&A. And for now, I think that about does some of my brief housekeeping items. I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to you, Dr. Roberts, to dive into our session.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Let me just share my PowerPoint. I don't have a lot of content I'm going to be sharing. I do appreciate having a visual aid, though. It helps me keep on track. As was shared, I am the proofreading coordinator here at National University, and I'll be sharing a little bit more about our proofreading service because got to highlight resources available for you lovely folks. I am also an academic coach who gets to meet with students one-on-one in group sessions. I lead one of our Power Hour sessions. It's called Not Done Yet. And also get to help out with just questions in our chat system at times. So a little bit more about me, because I always just like to be like, this is who I am, like to share that piece about myself. And as we're going through, if you've got questions, I mean, it's already been highlighted, but I just definitely want to just echo about scholarly writing, about editing, about our Academic Success Center, about things that I share, anything at all. I love rabbit trails. The PowerPoint is to help make sure that I come back to the course. So if there's questions that pop up, definitely want to help any way that I can. This collage is just pieces of who I am. I like to tell folks that I am a professional nerd who occasionally runs marathons. So on the left-hand side, you see the different schools that I've gotten to attend. I have an undergrad from Whitworth College in Washington State. I have master's from Geneva College and from Western Seminary. My PhD is from Azusa. It's in higher education. And then when I got done with all of that formal education, I decided I wanted to become a certified running coach. So that was the last the last structured organization I've been part of as a student. I adjunct teach for a college here in Portland, Oregon called Warner Pacific. I've been part of National for 4 years now. And then some other pieces are some of the volunteer work I get to do. I volunteer with a program called Foster Parents Night Out, which is just wonderful. It's one Saturday a month where we get to give families a little break. I write for a blog called Run Oregon. I volunteer with my church, East Side Imago Dei. I run around in circles and I read a lot of books. So that's kind of the big pieces of me. I've joined several book clubs in the last 2 years, in part to stop myself from going for another master's. So I will always, when I'm leading group sessions or individuals, I will always have books around to use as visual aids, and because that's probably what I was doing during my lunch break or when I'm done with the day. And then last piece, not least, because if he was here, I'd have to be very nice. In the bottom corner is my husband, Vikram. We've been married for almost 3 years now. And yeah, luckily he enjoys books as well. And so we're a great match in that way. So those are some pieces of me want to talk about in this session, and there'll be pauses for questions throughout being a scholarly editor. So first we got to start, of course, with how do you be a scholarly writer? And I connect that with being a lawyer. Go with me on this metaphor. I love metaphors. I love stories. So if you've watched any Law and Order, or I loved the show Drop Dead Diva that was around for a while, or The Practice, or it seems like there's a lot of Chicago law shows, you understand at least some basics of what the lawyer does in the courtroom. They're presenting their case for the prosecution or for the defense. They have a well-structured argument. They're speaking to the jury, trying to get them on their side to agree with the guilt or innocence of their client. They have a lot of responsibilities in that courtroom. There's one thing for sure they can't do as the lawyer, though. They can't be a witness. You just can't do both. You're the one who is structuring the argument, therefore you can't be part of it. And that's a real struggle. I assume for lawyers sometimes when they know the truth, when they know information that they can't prove with their witnesses and evidence. I know students often struggle with that too, where they have experience, they have life experience, they've done previous readings, they just know something. I learned about Christopher Columbus sailing the ocean blue 1492 in second grade, Mrs. Lang's class, sitting outside near the library. I have this very vivid memory. I don't know why, but it's very vivid of learning that information. And if I was going to write a paper about Christopher Columbus, I'd need a citation because I'm the one who's writing it. I can't be the witness. I got to have somebody else to support me. So I go from scholarly writing, crafting this solid argument using lots of resources and support to make it, to being a scholarly editor that is still thinking about that jury, that's still thinking about my reader and how do I make the best case possible. So there's different pieces to that, to making this case. My stepdad has this amazing Cobra. It's not this exact one, but very similar. And classic, original parts, runs great, all the wonderful things. He got it in high school and has taken very good care of it. And it is currently in my Parage storage unit underneath a bunch of boxes and dust and dirt. And so if someone opened the door, they wouldn't know this beautiful piece is inside. Instead, they get distracted by all the mess instead. That's what we're doing a lot of times with editing, is making sure that our reader can appreciate the treasure that's inside, that's getting lost under formatting, grammar, APA pieces. So want to talk about a couple best practices and then pause to check in with you lovely folks. So number one suggestion I offer to folks to improve their writing is to read it out loud, to go through it. And if that doesn't work for you, have the computer read it over or have someone else read it over. There's different ways, but not just have it on the screen. So for myself, anytime that I'm writing something that's kind of hot, that I'm working on that scholarly writing, that it's going to be presented with others, once I have a solid draft, not all the way along, just like when it's like, you know what, this is going well, I will print off a copy, grab a couple pens of different colors. Just, my mom was a kindergarten teacher. There's lots of colors and crayons in my life. And I will read it out loud. And I will read it like it's a speech, like full volume, full energy. You're going to catch so many things that are wrong that way that you wouldn't just reading it on the screen. And again, if that doesn't work for you, if you don't like that idea, then have the computer read it to you. Have someone else read it, because they're going to catch things that you wouldn't. You're going to find run-on sentences. You're going to find wrong words or misplaced words. There's things you're going to catch that you wouldn't otherwise, or that the computer will help catch, or a classmate. It doesn't even have to be, if you're having someone else read it, it doesn't have to be someone who's an expert in your content area. That's not what we're trying to fix right now. We're just trying to fix that refining piece. I had someone who was an editor for my dissertation. Her degree was in education. I was working in higher education, so some overlap. She would just highlight pieces that didn't make sense to her, and they were great. It was so helpful to think about it from a different perspective. Another best practice I want to offer is basically about knowing yourself. One of the things that I know that I struggle with in my writing is passive language, where I am talking about the situation rather than having the subject do the work. These participants were interviewed instead of participants completed the interviews, or something more active, more engaging. I know that passive language is a struggle for me. I know I've got some other common troubles in my writing. So therefore, when I've again finished a draft, I will go through my paper. And I've learned with passive language, I will search for the word of. I will search for some of those wimpy to be verbs, was, were, am, is, to see how many of those I have and try and get rid of some of them. When I first started my doctorate, one of my big trouble spots was about anthropomorphisms, which is giving objects human characteristics. So I would go through with that specific lens. A lot of students have trouble not including enough citations. So I encourage them, read through your paper, and at every sentence, if someone could say, how do you know that? Add a citation. So know your own common troubles and look for them at some point. Doesn't have to be worrying about as you're writing. Get words on the page, then go back and fix them. That works so much better for me. Last best practice I want to offer for the moment is about time. is just giving yourself time throughout your writing. So I said at the beginning of this slide, my number one suggestion for writers is about reading it out loud. My number one suggestion for students, whatever you're working on, is work on your assignments a little bit every single day. That's going to help you so you can ask questions early on and so you can have more time in your writing process. You can take notes on the article on Tuesday and work on the outline on Wednesday and start writing on Thursday. Having more time helps you catch new issues, gives you time to have new connections, a lot of time to ask the question. Sending a question to a professor on Monday, so much less stressful than Saturday or Sunday, definitely. As an adjunct professor, I would much rather have a little more time to help you out. So give that time to yourself. One of the group sessions I get to lead is on paraphrasing. And I tell folks, if you take your notes one day and start writing up your paper the next day, at least it helps the original source get a little bit fuzzier in a good way. If I watch a movie and then try to tell somebody about it right afterwards, I'm going to probably be telling them quotes and too much detail because I just saw it, versus a week later, I'll probably just talk about a couple key scenes or key ideas or a character I really liked. At the moment, again, I always keep books around that I'm reading. This book, The Cat Who Got the Killer, is this, odd mystery where there's a talking cat involved. And I'm halfway through it. And so it's really taking a lot of my thoughts right now, including the fact that not enough characters are surprised about a talking cat. That's really bothering me. Later on, though, in a month, I'll have a different impression. And I would just maybe describe it to lovely folks differently than I do right now in the midst of it. So giving yourself time to process is going to help your writing. Okay, I want to pause before I keep going. Questions?
Yes. I have two that I'd like to go over based off of these suggestions that you have just provided. Can you give our group an example of a common anthropomorphism?
Yes. Absolutely. Well, I will offer two. I'm going to offer, here's what I did on my very first paper when I was starting my doctorate. Got feedback from an editor, and she said I was the queen of anthropomorphisms, and I did not know what that word meant, so I responded, "Do I get a crown?" Okay. In my paper, what I had done was it was all about the future of higher education. So I wrote, colleges should do this. Universities need to do that. And my editor, her feedback was colleges and universities basically are a bunch of buildings. They can't do anything. You need to add humans, administrators, staff members, faculty members, stakeholders. Add some humans in there because the buildings can't do it. The most common I see among students is basically saying the study recommended, the article suggested, the book proposed. Again, those are pieces of paper. The author, Smith 2024, the researchers add humans. A way to check is in your mind, replace the words study, article, book with the word rock. A rock cannot propose. It cannot recommend. It cannot demonstrate. It cannot argue. It can include. It can display. There are things it can do, but that's a kind of a way to check it is like, okay, because in casual communication, yeah, that book made me cry. That article was made such great suggestions. We do that. That car cut me off. The human. Got to add that human being in there. And so I would encourage you use the word rock in your mind to just double check for that problem.
That is so incredibly helpful. As you're saying that, I'm thinking about my first section of my dissertation and how I need to go through and make sure I make those adjustments. Thank you so much for that
Very
example.
common in literature reviews, that section or that type of writing, because I mean, the book keeps annoying me. Like, no, it doesn't.
It's the author.
Shearer's
Yeah.
annoying me because not making a big enough deal about a talking cat.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that example. And then based off of your 3 tips that we just went over a little bit here, for knowing yourself, right? I think
Yeah.
that was one of the pieces that you discussed. So if you are, what are some of the suggestions for knowing yourself? I think you made references to passive
Mhm.
language, but do you find as a writer yourself that maybe you work on specific chunks of
Mm.
a subject matter and then work on tying them together? Do you think that that is also a part of understanding how you are as a writer?
Yeah. Oh, knowing your own writing style, absolutely. So as far as the knowing yourself part of this, what kind of feedback do you get? Like I kept getting feedback on passive writing. Okay, clearly this is an issue and I should be more aware of it. Or at one point I learned that the use of, while we often use the words although, what is it? Although and while we tend to use them synonymously, they're not. And that was one that was a brand new idea for me. So I was like, I'm going to put that on my little post-it note to just double check. There were certain things I found I was often getting wrong. So I just had a little post-it note that I would check near the end of my writing. Now, for me, my writing style is very slow. So it is a slow process, but it always gets done on time. And I've found ways that help as far as my anxiety related to writing or some self-critique that was a little too overwhelming. I learned all about slowing down for myself. I can only write one, maybe 2 paragraphs at a time. Then I need to go do something else. It is like my brain has run out of all the words and it needs to go do something else now. Now, I can do something still academic. I could do some reading. I could look up articles. I could do some editing, but there's no more writing. And if I try, if I just am like, no, no, push through, power through, it's going to be bad. It's going to be a paragraph that I will delete the next day. So I learned 1 or 2 a day, every day. In the end, it ends up being a good amount. Now, some folks can do, they can write for hours. They can just do a marathon. I had classmates in my program. I remember one got up early in the morning and would work in his office before the kids got up. Another would go into the office on Saturdays just to have a separate space. Others, I was a stay up late. That was better for my process. Whatever that is, embrace who you are and not try to change into some other writing process. If you are one that is the I need the last minute energy, the procrastination, I would encourage you to try and create maybe some other deadlines for yourself. For me, my first year in my doctorate, I submitted every single paper for review. And because mine was a much smaller program, it was a 2 weeks in advance. So I got much better at being organized and on time because everything had to be done 2 weeks before it was really due to get feedback. That helped me so much. So if there's someone you can have accountability with, if there's some sort of reward structure, whatever it is, I definitely encourage you on that. Whatever's going to help you get started earlier and still work with whatever's going to help you with your schedule and energy needs.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roberts. So just again, I appreciate your thought about the feedback you keep hearing
Yes.
and making sure that you're utilizing that as you move forwards. That's great. Again, read it out loud, know yourself, and use the time wisely so that
Yes.
it
Give
works for
yourself time.
you.
Yeah.
And that's it for now. There's only 2 questions for right now.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let me keep going and that's other questions, please. Again, like I said, I enjoy rabbit trails. Okay. So next piece, I already talked about this a little bit, some of these pieces. So I'm just going to give a little more detail about this idea with how are we using our resources? Because that is really what separates casual writing from more scholarly writing is that use of resources throughout, is making sure that anytime you have a sentence where a reader could say, wait, how do you know that? You've got your answer. You have that citation, that evidence. And because proofreading, I got to include some of these APA guidelines in here as well. If you're wondering, well, why do with citations, what do I need to include? Well, if you're paraphrasing, let's say, I tend to read 2 or 3 books at a time. So I'm also reading this one called Emperor of Rome by Mary Beard, was published in 2023. And if I was to paraphrase from this resource, so I am talking about ideas from this resource, but putting them in my own words, then I would say that Beard, 2023, describes the general lifestyle of emperors without a major focus on their battles or significant achievements. That would be my paraphrase. Ideas I've gotten from here, put in my own words. If there was something specific that I want to quote, this is from the page I was on when I finished my lunch break. The history of Palatine tells us a lot about the shifts in Roman power. It was one of the 7 or more hills on which the city of Rome was built. Maybe for some reason I'm like, oh, that is so perfect. That is so key and critical. Not really, but let's just pretend that that was great. Well, then, because it's a quote, because it comes from a specific spot, I'm including in my citation page 134. That helps my reader. I mean, this book, 700 pages? Oh, no, 500. It just feels heavier. 500 pages. If I just told them that quote was in here somewhere, they're not going to find it. So they need my help. The reader needs my help in finding the context. And because I've given that page number, that also increases their confidence that I know what I'm talking about, that I did really get this from here. I think of it kind of like when we have references for a job application. They don't necessarily call those 3 or 4 people up front to make sure that you really did work there. They really do like you. Just having them demonstrates you know some people. They might check them later, especially if they're really curious. But we're just giving that evidence and we're demonstrating it's more than he said, she said, or anything like that. It's I've got support for this. So that's why we got to have those details. So we've got on our ASC page more information about how to do citations in APA. And I know I lead a group session on paraphrasing each week. There's 2 group sessions each week that highlight about these that you would be welcome to join in if you've got questions about how do you connect. Okay, want to talk a little about technology and a little more highlight our ASC just a bit and then take another pause. So, couple of things nice and easy that are helpful from the lovely technology to help you. So these are a couple of just quick things from Microsoft Word that can help you. First off is the find function. One of my favorite things. And if you have a Macintosh or a PC, you can do this. I know on a PC, I believe it's Control F. On a Mac, which is what I have, there's a search bar right in the top corner. This helps you to, for example, catch common issues you have. Like I mentioned about searching for of and those verbs that are the more to be wimpy verbs. I remember at one point in my dissertation, one of my faculty members highlighted that I was using the word display a lot. Apparently, I just got on a little kick where that was my new favorite word. So I searched for it all the times I used the word display, and let's mix some of those up. If you're at a place where maybe you're one of those students, you're switch shifting from dissertation proposal to manuscript, you got to shift a lot of stuff from future tense to past tense. So search for the word will. You can also, if you have trouble with spacing, like let's say you may be like me, once upon a time we were trained that you put 2 spaces after the punctuation. Yeah, we don't do that anymore. And it took me a few weeks to break that particular habit. Maybe you haven't yet. You can search for spacebar, spacebar. Have it help you refine those spots. Have it help you replace them. So it's a simple tool, but it can be very useful. Next simple thing is in the layout. So up in the top section, up in those menus, that layout spot, the reason that one's real helpful is if you've got extra spaces between paragraphs, or if you've got issues with your single or double spacing. This is another spot that's really easy to have it help you. You can select the whole document, go up to layout and make sure that it's 0 point before and after. Now, Microsoft Word, its default, I don't know why, but it adds extra space. We don't want that. So rather than having to fix paragraph by paragraph or just have no idea, layout. That spot helps you with your margins. It helps you with your spacing. It's amazing how many things are in Microsoft. And last but not least, with technology piece is track changes. When you're communicating with your chair or faculty or someone else, I know anytime that I'm looking over a paper for a student, I turn that track changes on. And then sometimes folks are getting confused. What's with the red lines or gray lines or the things on the side? That line on the side means there's something that's been changed that hasn't been accepted or rejected yet. So gotta go up into those track changes, gotta accept all changes or reject ones if you don't agree with them. But that's a way to communicate and keep track. And within that review section, you can also see there's like different ones. You can see what was the original, what was simple markup, all markup, no markup. So you can see different views like, what did this look like when I first sent it to Billy? And what is it, what is everything that Billy did? And what does Billy think I should have done? These are all possible without messing up your paper. So just a couple little things in your technology that can help you. Oop, I forgot I put these images. So that's where that part is up in layout with the 0 point before and after to fix that spacing between the paragraphs, and then how to switch that view within the review space. So you can see lots of different parts of how did it originally look versus with the feedback. So a last piece before pausing again to check in is about what we have with the ASC, in case you haven't wandered around our pages much. We have asynchronous resources, so there's lots of different things. Go click on all the buttons. I'm finding new things all the time. Actually realizing we've added a button since I took this screenshot. So new things all the time, new icons. Um, the proofreading service is included in here. I primarily use the APA style. That's, includes citations and references and headings and those sorts of things. The writing has sections on paragraph structure and paraphrasing and introductions, statistics, which tests to use, some SPSS guidance. So there's lots and lots of different things within here. Also on this screenshot highlights our coaching scheduler, which you can sign in through if you wanted to join a group session or power hour or sign up for an individual. And then in the bottom left, it has the ASC chat, which when I took this screenshot wasn't available, but you can always send a message, always check in. And we got folks who work on the team every day of the week, weekends included, unless it's a holiday. And so someone will get back to you, usually the same or next day, any questions that you've got. Okay, want to pause, check in, thoughts, questions, anything that would be helpful for the lovely folks.
One thing that I'd like to just ask, are you going to, forgive me if you're going to go into this so we can get to it later if need be, but are you going to touch on the different types of proofreading services?
A little bit, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
If we
We'll
don't, I'll
definitely talk
remind
about
you
that.
at the end. But no, there were no other questions that came up.
Okay, well, awesome. Okay, I'll keep going. Yes, I definitely have proofreading. Gotta talk about my team. Gotta talk about my little team. And can also go into those pages if it's valuable for folks. So another part, and some of it has some similar words, but it is a little bit different, is you lovely folks right now, your students in your undergrad, master's, doctorate, maybe you're in dissertation phase. One of the things I got to learn early in my grad school is to recognize what's important to you and what you might need to put on pause for a little while. They actually had us do this activity at my orientation. They gave each of us a level, which is a tool to help you if you're doing construction, just to make sure is that picture straight or is that board straight or whatever. It's this very simple level, and had a couple tags hanging on each side. And we were to write down what were the things that were going to help us in our grad school and what were things that might get in the way. My mom's written on one of those. I won't tell you which side because she might still try to ground me. So when I was going into grad school, was realizing there were things I was going to have to give up for a little while to make this work. And that amount increased once I saw my first syllabus. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm not going to be adjunct teaching for the next 4 or 5 years. And I didn't. But there were things I held on to. I am part of a small group every Thursday night. And that is just a really important group for me. I've been part of it at least 10 years now, friends. We have a meal together, we spend time together from conversation. That's my family in Portland. And so that was a non-negotiable for me. I run with a friend almost every Saturday morning. That was another non-negotiable. And at the time I was working on my doctorate, I had a favorite TV show called Once Upon a Time. It was on ABC Sunday nights at 8. I just love that as a final bit of rest before starting a new week. And so I decided those three things, those three trivial little things, nope, I'm not giving those up for homework. I'm not giving those up to write or edit or anything. A lot of other stuff I did give up. I gave up coaching for a running team for a few years. Gave up adjunct teaching. I gave up a lot of invitations to social events, including with that group when they would do stuff on things nights other than a Thursday. No, I had to say no for a few years to make this work. And so I would encourage you as you're thinking through, maybe this is a chance to reset for your writing. Is like, okay, what do I need to hold on to? And what do I need to maybe let go of, at least for now? After I graduated, I started adjunct teaching again. I started coaching again with a different team, but it's been even better because I've got a really great friend who also coaches, so benefit. There's things that I've reclaimed or whole lot of new books I've read since then. So knowing yourself, what do you need like for that mental health side? About knowing your week. At one point in my doctorate, I was working one full-time job and taking my doctoral classes. And the way my program worked, there was one time when I had 4 different classes that I was juggling. And so I started doing a very simple index card every Sunday night. I would block it out into 7 boxes. And what did I have to get done by the next Sunday? And what was I going to do each night of the week to get to that Sunday? By the time I was in my dissertation phase, I actually had left the full-time job and I had multiple part-time jobs. So I flipped the card over and started doing one of these every single night to figure out what's tomorrow. Because I was working as a nanny and I was adjunct teaching and I was helping at a daycare and I was working as an accounting office assistant. Very eclectic. I needed every day to keep track of what's tomorrow. I still do this. I still do this process. One of the last things I do every night before bed, just to kind of help settle myself. Especially with that week, it was so helpful for me because then I would realize as I would kind of look at my calendar a little bit farther out than normal, oh, I have something maybe all day on Saturday, or I have more assignments due this Sunday than normal. So how can I be proactive earlier? Do I need to take a afternoon off? Is there something else I need to give up? Do I need to, like, this week, if I go to the gym, is there going to have to be a book with me constantly? What's going to need to change? So figuring that part out. And maybe you want to try your own scheduler. So there's lots of different options. I mean, mine was very simple. Like I said, note cards, still do it. I have note cards all over the apartment. I had to explain that to the husband when he moved in. Why are these everywhere? Very important. Nice thing about these, rather than a journal, at the end of the day, recycling bin. No keeping track. Don't need to watch. Last one on this list is about knowing your village. So who can you rely on for a lot of different reasons? Was talking about this with a student, I think, last week about how important it is to have a really good diverse village as far as skills and personalities and availability, of these lovely folks. For example, this is from left to right, Coralie, Beth, and Patricia. Coralie, she's the one, if I'm feeling sick, she's going to drop off groceries whether I want them or not. She's going to be there. She is just such a wonderful person, a natural hostess, always helpful. If I'm having a bad day, her home's open, even though there's 5 kids there and it's going to be a chaos, but it's available. Beth is the one, if I need to vent, call her. She's a teacher, so got to call her before or after school, but she's there, ready for the vent, ready for suggestions if I want them, and if I don't, she'll disagree with me on all the things I say. And Patricia lives in San Diego with 2 adorable kids and a willingness to go to every beach I want to multiple times and to just offer a space to do homework or to read or to go for runs, or she's my vacation home is her house. And I've got lots of other people in my village too. So these three get highlighted because they were my dissertation community. I asked them at one point just to hold me accountable and to be there at my graduation in California and to check in with me at least once a week to see how things are going. We need those people in our lives, and it can vary. I've got friends that are I got I have friends that are mostly just about sending political memes when you're feeling a little sassy. Perfect. I've got ones I can ask questions of. I can ones like, my brother, I want to understand anything about sports. He's the guy I go to. Another friend, if I want to go for a walk, she's always up for it. So having that varied group for different needs, so important. And if it's only like a couple people in your life, hold on to them, see what you can use from them, maybe see if there's ways you can stretch that group a little bit, whatever's going to be best for you. Want to kind of wrap up my planned content with this quote that is it's on my wall, it's on my email list, it comes out of my mouth I'd say at least once a week. It's talking with students. The miracle isn't that I finished, the miracle is that I had the courage to start. And it comes from a man named John Bingham, nicknamed the Penguin, because he's a runner, or I think he's retired now, but he kind of waddled, not a fast Olympic marathon, no, not winning the races, buried back of the pack, normal human being. And I love this quote, in part because I love that he's got, you know, multiple books that he's published and had a coaching plan and all these things, and he's normal human penguin. But I think it's a recognition that starting something new is really hard. The blank page is really hard. Once you have something down, like I've been starting to think, I think I have a second favorite quote that's coming in from Ernest Hemingway, write drunk, edit sober. Not that I'm literally telling y'all to get drunk before you write, but you just got to get words on the page. You just put something down, even if you're like, this is horrible, this is bad, I can't believe anybody let me in this program. Just put something on it, then you can fix it. Because the blank page is so terrifying. When I start, if I start reading a book, last year I read a book about J. Edgar Hoover that was 750 pages, and it just sat on my floor staring at me for a few months before I finally started reading it. And then I would just read it like 10 pages a day, and it took me 6 months at like just little chunks at a time, and I benefited. I learned 1,000 times more about J. Edgar Hoover than I never ever knew before because I just started. And so same thing with your writing, any type of writing, but yeah, absolutely with scholarly writing, just getting some words on the page, getting started, then you can edit, then you can refine, then you can get support from our ASC team and others for how do I make this better. Can't do that when you can't submit a blank page to proofreading. That we'll tell you it's lovely, and then say, would you like to try again? So with that, with our proofreading service, that again, got to send words on page 2, we have a variety of sessions available. They're based on time, and our proofreading service is a paid service, so there is a cost to it. Our other parts of ASC, like group sessions, individual sessions, all those things on our website do not have a cost. So what we do is we do an asynchronous review of your document. So you submit your work, and the receipt for your paid session, and one of our proofreaders looks over it. All of our proofreaders have earned doctorates. They're all employed by National, so it's not one of these we're outsourcing or know someone that we can't ask follow-up questions to. We have a wonderful team. We are a small and mighty team. There's 4 of us, and everyone has been here for at least a year, so well-trained, loyal, committed. We look over your paper with a focus on APA formatting and grammar, and you get back a reviewed copy of your document with track changes and a video of additional verbal commentary to help support it. We're here to help. We're here to go back to earlier metaphor, help wash off that car that you have and help others appreciate what you have. So depending on what you're working on, that guides what session you purchase. So 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, that's $20, $34, $65, $100, much less expensive than any other editing or proofreading services you're going to find. And afterwards, if there's questions or anything, you check in with us. We help. We don't just abandon you or tell you to purchase something else. We can help with those follow-up questions and clarifications. And so, like for folks with a dissertation manuscript, we'll sign up for a 3-hour session. If you have a complete manuscript, if you're almost to defense, we do what we call our sprint to the finish review, which is a free 3-hour review we offer to students with a complete manuscript. It's our, I like to call it our graduation gift. So if you're almost at the end, make sure you you sign up for that. If you're at any other point where you're like, my chapters, I keep getting feedback from my chair or my faculty member on my assignments or on my chapter about something, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Because I've had that experience myself. Absolutely. One of my favorite professors in my undergrad would write awkward on my papers all over the place. And I didn't know how to not be awkward. I didn't even know what exactly was wrong. And I was like, is this personal? And I am awkward and I own that. I'm also a nerd and I'm good with that now. And at 42, I'm solid at being an awkward nerd. Happy joy joy. At 20, yeah, I just cried. It wasn't very helpful. So we give you that feedback. We can help figure out maybe some of the things that your faculty is what's getting stuck. So resources available for you lovely folks to help you with getting towards that finish line. You have sacrificed time and effort and money, and our whole ASC team wants to be here to help in moving forward. Ta-da.
I do have a couple of questions if it's okay.
Yes, please.
Pipe in. Awesome. In your experience, and it's okay if you can only think of one or two off the top of your head, and I know you already talked about passive voice.
Mhm.
In your experience with the proofreading or editing services available, what are some of the most common mistakes, or I would say common areas for improvement? How about that?
We can pivot. Yes.
That you see that might be helpful for this group to to walk away with.
Common areas. I mean, the APA pieces, it's making sure like some of those citation formatting and reference formatting, just that it
Okay.
is the APA format and checking that out. Because like with references, that's definitely a very common area because if you get the references out of, say, RefWorks, it's about 95% right. Yay! But not 100%.
Yes.
RefWorks often gets the italics and the capitalization wrong. So if you just download your references from RefWorks or copy from the library or copy them off Google Scholar, it will probably have some mistakes. So you need to know the rules of references well enough, the basic guidelines, so you recognize those mistakes. So that's an area very common. If it's a dissertation manuscript, a lot of times folks have not updated their proposal section from future tense to past tense. That also comes up, that past tense issue, when folks are talking about literature that they're using. So Beard 2023 is not writing about the Roman Empire. Beard wrote, suggested, proposed, offered. Beard's done. Beard's doing other stuff. So when you're talking about authors, mostly it's going to be past tense. It might be present tense if it's like a value or a recommendation. Majority though, past tense. And the way to help remember this, and no offense, but they could be dead. You know, Paulo Freire, one of my favorite authors. Yeah, long dead. Is not writing, proposing, arguing, recommending. No, he's doing other stuff now. So making sure past tense, that's another common. Um, in the formatting, it's about checking spacing between paragraphs, between punctuation. That's where find comes in to help catch some things. And concise writing, which is another, just being very focused. Like, are you telling me the same thing multiple times, which connects with passive language, which can connect with some like repetition, maybe some run-on sentences. And again, reading out loud or having someone else read can help. That's an area that other folks can help you catch.
Super helpful, Dr. Roberts. And the RefWorks piece, especially, I'm not sure how many people on this call have used RefWorks before, but I have noticed that you are correct. About 90%
Yeah,
of the
no,
time,
high majority. It's you got it's worth it. So please don't anyone be like, Meg says, don't you? No, please use.
Oh, yes.
I 100% encourage using it. It gets the content, it gets the
Yes.
author, the year, the article, saves time, absolutely. You just have to double check it. You can't
Right.
trust it fully.
Right.
And
For example, I'm thinking of one in particular when you pull it over is usually like what I've seen in the past is journals tend
mm,
not to come over italicized.
yes,
And
yes.
so that is why having that APA 7th edition manual or accessing the APA resources on the Academic
CPH.
Success Center, yes, yeah,
Mhm.
are very helpful. Okay, and so
Capitalization, italics, page range. That's the other one that's the most common mistake. And that third one's actually the most annoying because capitalization and italics you can fix without needing to go back to the original resource. Page range, if that's missing, you can't guess. You have to check. That one's the most annoying. It's also the least common. The other two are much more, but
okay.
it helps me actually feel a little bit safer about robots taking over the world if they can't remember italics. So,
Right. And with the AI conversation, of course, that's a whole different webinar in itself.
yeah, I
Okay.
got different thoughts on that one too.
So I just want to make sure our participants know they're welcome to ask any questions, maybe specific to proofreading or editing. I think Dr. Roberts did a great job encompassing some general tips on how to be successful with that. Three takeaways that I am hearing is know yourself as a writer, give yourself the time uh, that works with how you write best. And then, of course, the reading aloud. I'm guilty as charged. That is not something that I do quite often, but I can absolutely see why that would be very, as Zoanne just mentioned in the chat, I read everything aloud, but I could see how that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
I will just wait just a second and see if there's any other questions. And if not, that's perfectly acceptable to end just a few minutes early. And I'd like to thank you and thank our attendees today. And until the next time, I hope you all have a great rest of your day.